Take a look at your wallet. Go ahead, pull out a dollar bill. You've seen it thousands of times. The familiar portrait of George Washington, the Great Seal, the pyramid. And right there, above the words $1, is a phrase so ingrained in the American identity, we barely even notice it anymore. In God we trust.
It feels foundational, doesn't it? Like it was etched into the country's soul by the founding fathers themselves, right alongside the Declaration of Independence. But what if I told you that's completely wrong? What if I told you that for the first 180 years of its existence, the United States had a completely different motto, and that the phrase on your money isn't a relic of the 18th century, but the product of a forgotten political battle, born out of national crisis and weaponized during the most paranoid era in modern history? Today, we're uncovering the hidden history of In God We Trust, and the real story is far more political, controversial, and recent than you could ever imagine. Before we had God on our money, we had something else. Something the founding fathers actually chose. To find it, look at the other side of that dollar bill, on the ribbon held in the eagle's beak. You'll see 13 letters, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one. This was the original, de facto motto of the United States, and it perfectly captured the spirit of the American experiment. You had 13 disparate, bickering colonies, each with its own identity, coming together to form a single, unified nation. Out of many, one. The men who chose this phrase, men like Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams, were products of the Enlightenment. They were deeply skeptical of intertwining government with religion. They had seen centuries of religious wars tear Europe apart, and they wanted no part of it. This is why the US Constitution is a famously godless document. It doesn't mention God once. The First Amendment is explicit. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. They envisioned a secular government, a republic where a person's faith was a private matter, not a state-sponsored slogan. For over a century, pluribus unum represented this ideal. It was on coins, on official documents, and in the hearts of the people. It was a motto of unity, not divinity. So, what changed? The answer begins not in a moment of faith, but in a moment of profound, nation-shattering bloodshed. The year is 1861. The United States is tearing itself apart. The Civil War is raging, and the death toll is staggering. In times of extreme crisis, people often turn to faith, and the nation was desperate for a sign that God was on its side. In November of that year, a reverend from Pennsylvania named M.C.R. Watkinson sat down and wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Treasury, Salmon P. Chase. He argued that the Union's coinage should recognize God, to show the world that America was a Christian nation, even in its darkest hour. The letter struck a chord with Secretary Chase, a deeply religious man. He instructed the director of the U.S. Mint to prepare a design. After a few variations, they settled on a phrase that felt powerful and unifying: In God We Trust. In 1864, as the war dragged on, the first coin bearing this inscription was minted, the 2-cent piece. Now, this is a crucial detail. The phrase was on a single coin. It was an act of piety during wartime, but it was far from being the national motto. For the next 90 years, it appeared on some coins and not on others. E pluribus unum remained the nation's unofficial anthem of unity. The real revolution, the moment In God We Trust conquered America's identity, wouldn't happen until the nation faced a new, invisible, and terrifying enemy. Fast forward to the 1950s. The world had changed. World War II was over, and the United States had emerged as a global superpower, but so had the Soviet Union. This was the dawn of the Cold War, an era of nuclear paranoia, McCarthyism, and the Red Scare. The enemy wasn't just a nation, it was an ideology, communism. And a core tenet of the Soviet Union state ideology was atheism. They were, in the fiery rhetoric of the day, the godless communists. This created a perfect political opportunity. American politicians realized they needed a simple, powerful way to draw a line in the sand. A way to define America in direct, stark opposition to the Soviets. The battle wasn't just about missiles and economies. It was a battle for the soul of humanity. It was freedom vs. tyranny, capitalism vs. communism, and, most effectively, it was God vs. godlessness. Suddenly, public piety became a political weapon. Religious leaders like the famous evangelist Billy Graham became close advisors to politicians. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was baptized only after entering the White House, championed a national spiritual renewal. In 1954, the phrase, "under God," was inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance. But that was just the beginning. A Florida congressman named Charles Bennett introduced a bill to mandate that "In God We Trust" appear on all American currency, paper, and coin. His reasoning was explicit. He stated, "In these days when imperialistic and materialistic communism seeks to attack and destroy freedom, we should continually look for ways to strengthen the foundations of our freedom." The bill passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. There was virtually no debate. Opposing it would have been political suicide. It would be like siding with the communists. The first dollar bills bearing "In God We Trust" began printing in 1957. But they didn't stop there. Having conquered the currency, they set their sights on the motto itself. In 1956, in another act of Congress fueled by the ideological fervor of the Cold War, President Eisenhower signed a law that officially replaced "E pluribus unum." "In God We Trust" was now the official motto of the United States of America. Think about that. The official motto of the nation was changed not in 1776, but in 1956. Not by the Founding Fathers, but by politicians in the grip of the Cold War, seeking to create a clear ideological divide with an atheist enemy. "E pluribus unum" out of many, one was quietly pushed aside in favor of a statement of religious faith. So, where does that leave us today? Ever since the 1950s, the motto has faced numerous legal challenges. Opponents argue that it's a clear violation of the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, the separation of church and state. How can a government that's supposed to be neutral on religion have an official motto that explicitly names God? The courts, however, have consistently disagreed. They've upheld the motto under a legal concept known as ceremonial deism. The argument is that the phrase, through repetition and patriotic context, has lost its purely religious significance. It's become more of a historical slogan or a patriotic ceremony, like saying, "God bless you," when someone sneezes. It's a nod to the nation's religious heritage, they argue, not an active establishment of religion. But for millions of Americans who are not religious, or who follow non-monotheistic faiths, the phrase feels anything but ceremonial. It feels like an official endorsement of a specific type of religion, a relic of a less tolerant time that's stamped on the very currency they have to use every single day. The story of "In God We Trust" is the story of America itself. It shows how the nation's identity is not static, but is constantly being reshaped by the pressures of history, politics, and fear. The 4 words on your dollar bill aren't a simple statement of faith from the 18th century. They are a ghost of the Civil War and a scar of the Cold War, a political declaration forged in conflict that redefined what it meant to be an American and replaced the founders' vision of unity with a proclamation of divinity. So the next time you look at a piece of American currency, you'll see more than just paper and ink. You'll see the battle between two Americas, the secular republic envisioned by the founders with "E pluribus unum," and the faithful nation defined in opposition to its enemies with "In God We Trust." But what do you think? After hearing its history, do you see "In God We Trust" as a proud statement of national heritage, or as a political relic that contradicts the principle of a secular government? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's a complex topic, and I'm genuinely curious to hear all perspectives. And if you found this piece of hidden history fascinating, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives that question the things we take for granted. Thanks for watching.